This anime opens by showing the hunters' attack on an island called Jeju 3 years ago. The hunters who were currently carrying out their duties, the soldiers could only watch from a distance, because they knew that ordinary weapons could not injure, let alone defeat a monster. Unfortunately, even though the number of hunters was very large, their attacks were not strong enough to penetrate the skin of the ant monsters. Slowly, one by one, the personal hunters there began to be defeated until only one person remained. One of the hunters was still alive even though his stomach was being eaten by a monster. Suddenly, one of the high-ranking hunters came and got rid of the ant and at the same time gave healing to the hunter. When one of the high-ranking hunters looked like he was going to be attacked by several other ants, it turned out he didn't come alone. Seeing this, everyone who was still alive was shocked to see how agile the S-rank hunters were in acting like that. The three hunters are named Min Byung-gai Gyu, Baek Hyun-ho, and the magician named Yun Sia. Not long after, a white ant appeared which they thought was just the leader of a group of red ants. But it turned out that seeing the many white ants that came, instead of being afraid, Yun-ho felt excited and exerted his true strength, until finally they defeated the ant monster. Meanwhile, a group of red-haired glasses men named Choi Jong-in are seen, who also seem to be busy with the invasion of ant monsters from another wave. Jong-in started a counterattack by throwing his fire magic, causing the hordes of ants to die instantly. Then the narrator tells about a major incident that occurred dozens of years ago that affected the entire world. At that time, a passage to another world called a gate suddenly appeared, and in it, there were many monsters that could not be penetrated by human guns at all. After that, we are shown the levels given by the hunters from highest to lowest: rank C, rank A, rank B, rank C, rank D, and the last one is rank E. Even though it sounds strong, after someone awakens that power W, abilities will not get stronger no matter how hard he trains. In the present, several hunters are seen gathering to enter a dungeon. A middle-aged man is seen who is approached by a hunter named Park Ji-sul. He assumes that Kim Sang-shik has retired from the world of hunters. Park explained that his wife was pregnant with their second child, therefore he needed money to survive. While the two of them were chatting, Kim was seen greeting a young man who had just arrived. Seeing everyone greeting the man named Sung Jin-woo, it was clear that Park thought that Jin-woo was a very strong hunter. However, Kim said that they all greeted Jin-woo because he was called humanity's weakest weapon. Jin-woo got this nickname after he was injured and treated after being injured in an E-rank dungeon, and this made him named the weakest hunter in the first rank. Not long after, Jin-woo was seen being approached by a girl named Lee Ju-hee. Ju-hee was seen scolding Jin-woo, who is injured again and was hospitalized. A short time after chatting together, finally the time to enter the D-rank dungeon arrived. We saw a dungeon party led by a hunter named Song Cheol. After they prepared themselves, they finally entered the dungeon in front of them now. A season before entering the dungeon, Jin-woo was seen taking out a cheap dagger and almost drained all his previous income. Even though it will be very difficult, Jin-woo still intends to do his best. The scene then moves to a building that seems to be a hunter bureau. Inside, two people were seen chatting about the results of the meeting with the government. In essence, the results of the meeting were not good, but it still made sense because it was the hunter's duty and habit to earn money from the dungeon. Seen back in the dungeon, Jin-woo is seen not focusing after getting a magic stone from a goblin, and this causes him to be attacked from behind by another goblin. Even though Jin-woo managed to withstand the goblin's attack, unfortunately his dagger broke when he was about to attack him. Park saw that Jin-woo had been stabbed and immediately helped him, but the goblin's attack caused Jin-woo's stomach to bleed. Luckily, Jushi is a healer and immediately saved Jin-woo. Seeing all his party mates, Jin-woo felt jealous of all of them who had the power to finish off the monsters. The scene shifts to the Hunter's Bureau. We see the two people talking about the government, which asked the Hunter's Bureau to make a power generator powered by magic stones and mana crystals. Because both of them are ideal clean energy, the reason is none other than because they are safer than nuclear and much more efficient than currently existing energy sources. Long story short, when all their party friends were celebrating, Shiyu had succeeded in defeating the dungeon boss there. Jushi was seen scolding Jin-woo and continuing to urge him to stop endangering himself, because Ju-hee was really worried about Jin-woo. Hearing Juhi's words, he realized that his income was not worth his life. Not long afterward, one of the hunters announced that he had found a passage connected to a place, which was often referred to as a two-layer dungeon. They felt strange because the dungeon had not been closed even though the boss had been defeated. They thought that there were still prey hiding in there. According to the existing dungeon rules, they had to wait for further orders from the Hunter Bureau if they found something odd. But since they didn't want to be taken by the Hunter Bureau, they wouldn't just leave it alone. Park and Kim also felt like continuing the exploration and felt that it didn't matter, because the dungeon was only a rank D dungeon. Then Chulio opened a vote to decide whether to go forward or not, and the result was 6 in favor and 6 against. The final decision was in Jinwoo's hands, even though he already knew that he was weak, but because he needed the money for medical expenses and school fees for his younger brother. Therefore, Jinwoo made a decision that he would definitely regret for the rest of his life. The scene then switches, showing the ranking test for the new hunters. After getting the results, some people from the Hunter Guild will try to recruit those who have potential. Among the recruiters came from the highest ranking guild, led by Choi Jong-in. Even though Jong-in asked his men to recruit people with potential, he was sure that no one would be able to surpass Hunter Sha Hyen. Then we see Hai Yuen, who managed to reclaim a girl's wallet. Seeing the figure of a high-ranking hunter, it seems like everyone there immediately approached him because he was an idol. Long story short, before Song Kyeol's party arrived at the end of the corridor, Jinwoo continued to apologize to Juhi because of his decision, so they continued their journey. After Juhi scolded him, Jinwoo felt sorry and apologized to him. Hearing Jinwoo like that, Juhi would forgive him if Jinwoo agreed to treat her another time. After that, they arrived at the end of the hall and saw a mysterious giant door waiting to be opened, without knowing what would happen if they were in there. At the same time as those who were preparing to enter, the head of the Hunter Bureau was seen giving instructions to the new hunters, which he gave directions, even though they would later get used to doing red dungeons, but never be careless, arrogant, and never think that they were dungeons or easy. Once inside, they were all seen going to the middle of the room and felt strange about all the statues surrounding the room. Meanwhile, Jinwoo seemed to really admire one of the statues in front of him at the moment. They also felt strange about the atmosphere without the presence of monsters, and Song Kyeol seemed to realize that the circle pattern looked like a magic circle. Not long after, one of the hunters called him because he found a statue carrying a tablet with ancient writing. While Song Kyeol was reading the writing, Jusi called Jinwoo to tell him that he had just found the statue's eyes glancing at them. And this is where the very binding incident occurred, starting with the door suddenly closing and a hunter wanting to get out of there, because he felt something very bad was going to happen. When they arrived at the statue near the door that could move and kill the hunter, suddenly they were all shocked because one of them had just died like that. Seeing this, they didn't seem to believe that the dungeon they were entering was only a low-rank dungeon. Song Kyeol just realized that the statue could move. He explained that not only one statue could move. Hearing this, Jinwoo immediately looked at the giant statue behind him, which turned out to be the statue he was looking at. Jinwoo then narrated about his life, which always stood on life and death, where when his first read, Jinwoo ended up getting lost and being defeated by an E-rank monster. This made him hospitalized for weeks. Not only that, he almost died of starvation because he was trapped inside Labyrinth. Even though he continues to experience failures like that, that's what makes Jinwoo able to sharpen his sensitivity to everything around him. Then one of the statues there shot a hot laser at them, and it killed several of them instantly. Jinwoo questioned everything that happened just now. His party partners dying, the statue that could move, and the incredible heat laser attack. All this clearly makes Jinwoo conclude that there is only one thing that will happen to him, and episode 1 ends here. The anime opens showing Song Kyeol telling them all not to move, because they think the statue will attack anyone who moves. Meanwhile, Jinwoo, who was worried about Juhi's condition, was seen being approached by Song Shiyu, who thanked him, because it was Jinwoo who had shouted to warn them all. But at the same time, Jinwoo was very surprised because it turned out that Song Kyeol had lost one of his arms. Not wanting to make the existing condition worse, Song Kyeol just asked Jinwoo to help him stop the bleeding on his hand. Then Song Kyeol told him that even though Juhi was a B-rank healer, he was timid and easily startled, which made him keep slowing down in lowly dungeons like that. Song Kyeol, who admitted that he had entered B-rank dungeons 2 or 3 times before, was very confident that the statue was most likely a rank or even S-rank. After recalling the contents of the previous Kartanon Temple's decree, Jinwoo suspected that the god included in the decree was the statue, The scene then moves to school, and a student named Sung Jin-ae is seen, who is Jinwoo's younger brother. It was seen that his friend, who was late for school, suddenly asked about his brother who was a hunter. After confirming this, Sung Jin said that his brother was often injured and almost always came home with bandages. Returning to the dungeon, Jinwoo and his raid party were seen, and Song was discussing with Jinwoo. Then one of them looked fed up just being silent and decided to run away from there, because he felt confident in his speed. But what happened was that he looked dead and only had his 2 legs left. Knowing that the statue could kill them all whenever he wanted. But that actually became a big question for Jinwoo. Even though he could do it, why didn't he immediately kill them all? After that, Jinwoo asked Song Shiel to reiterate the contents of the previous Cartoon Amendment rules, since the first rule is to respect the god. Jinwoo is very sure that the dungeon must have a rule. After daring himself to try his conjecture, Jinwoo immediately asked all his colleagues to prostrate before the statue. Even though at first everyone didn't believe Jinwoo's words, because he told them that their suspicions were in accordance with the rules of respecting the gods, they all immediately followed Jinwoo's method of prostrating themselves in front of the statue. Until finally the statue's expression then changed to smiling at all of them. Seeing that the statue was no longer moving, this made everyone there cheer happily because they thought everything was finished. However, Jinwoo felt that there was something very strange about their current situation, and it turned out that their misery would still continue. Jinwoo then remembered the second rule of the commandment, which said, "Praise the god." Hearing this, one of them admitted that he had studied folklore studies and asked to submit the matter of praise to the gods. However, after saying it, Jinwoo was surprised, because it turned out that the man had offered a compliment that he shouldn't have given to the god of the statue. Because he mistakenly offered praise to God, the man was then killed instantly and died on the spot. Seeing this incident, they all ran away so they could survive the statue's attack. When Jinwoo, who was carrying Juhee, ran away from there, Park was seen stopping because he thought he was far enough away. But he forgot one thing, that all the statues there could definitely move at any time. Because of his carelessness, Park now has to die there. Meanwhile, Jinwoo continued to recall the rules of the command and continued to analyze their current situation. Until finally he found the point of enlightenment from the second rule, where spears, hammers, and swords are weapons. But among the statues there, some of them are not carrying weapons, but rather musical instruments. Then Jinwoo immediately shouted, asking everyone there to look for the statue with instruments. And sure enough, after they arrived at the statue with instruments, the sound of music could be heard from every statue that already had an occupant. But apparently Jinwoo just found out that one statue can only be occupied by one person, so he was forced to ask Juhee to wait there while he had to look for another instrumented statue. Jinwoo continued to run with the statue, continuing to chase him. Thought Jinwoo was dead, but because of his persistence, Jinwoo managed to escape his own death. He continued to drag his body, accompanied by the statue's footsteps, which seemed to be stepping on him. In the end, Jinwoo managed to survive and understand the meaning of the Second Amendment. After the statue sat back down, Juhee was seen approaching Jinwoo because she was very worried about him. However, Jinwoo's safety just now doesn't mean there isn't a price he has to pay, because it turns out Jinwoo has lost his leg. Even though Juhee wanted to force herself to help heal Jinwoo's wound, Juhee's body was unable to. At the same time, even though Kim felt concerned about Song Shiul, who had lost his hand, he still blamed everything that happened on Song Shiul. Even though he and Park really wanted them to continue their previous search, it's possible that we too have experienced something similar, where when the situation is critical, usually we will be very depressed and end up blaming other people. Then suddenly the statue appeared to have an altar right in the middle of the room. Jinwoo then said that an altar is a place to offer something, such as property or life, to a god, and that is the meaning of the third rule, which says, obey the god. Hearing this, Kim, without thinking, intended to avenge Song Shiul, especially since Song Shiul had promised to take responsibility for all mistakes that weren't actually his fault. In a short time, in order to know what would happen, Jinwoo asked the two people to help him approach the altar together with them. At that time, when the three of them entered, 3 flames were also seen appearing there. Even so, Jinwoo still doesn't know what it all really means. After asking about the reinforcements that would be coming, Song Shuai said that it had been a week since they had entered the dungeon, but he was sure that they would all be wiped out before the reinforcements arrived. Hearing this, Jinwoo explained that the gate would be fully open in 7 days, and that was the moment known as the dungeon break. The original purpose of holding the raid was actually to prevent that from happening. The scene then changes. We see Sung Jin coming to the hospital to visit his sick mother, not knowing what the disease was, but as a good child and filial to his parents. Sung Jin continued to chat with his mother even though her mother was unconscious. Back to Jinwoo and the others. Kim and Joo-hee were asked to get closer there so they could find out what would happen. After all the fire around them was fully lit, it turned out that the fire emitted blue electricity instantly. After finding out the mechanism for attacking all the statues there, it turned out to be the same as the game they played when they were little. Jinwoo then asked everyone there not to avert their eyes at all, even though he knew and saw that all the statues there had stopped. Because of the pressure experienced by one of the people carrying Jinwoo, he felt that he couldn't stand it anymore and decided to run away alone. Then initially only one person ran away, but it was clear that because of the pressure of fear and selfishness to save himself. This made a man who was helping Jinwoo then throw him and run away like the girl before. When they were all gone, the door slowly started to close as more people left there. And when Kim also wanted to run away, he was immediately stopped by Jinwoo, who believed that the blue fire was a cooldown that they had to go through to survive. But the selfish Kim said there was no guarantee that they would survive even though the countdown was over. He didn't expect that Jinwoo, who was the weakest hunter among them, had actually been so helpful since the statue incident started. And of course, Kim's words just now didn't mean to praise him, but he also wanted to run away like those two people. Then after Kim left, Jinwoo, Songchul, and Joo-hee were left. When Songchul asked Joo-hee to take Jinwoo away from there. However, in a critical situation like that, Joo-hee suddenly became a burden. Seeing this, Jinwoo asked Songchul to take Joo-hee away from there. Hearing Jinwoo's words just now, of course Jizzy knew what he meant. Because they had very little time, Songchul immediately made Joo-hee faint and apologized to Jinwoo. After the two of them had left, Jinwoo felt grateful because the final victim was himself. After the two of them left, because he didn't want to die in vain, Jinwoo was seen taking Kim's sword in the hope of bringing at least one statue in front of him. But what happened was that Jinwoo lost and was beaten to the ground by all the statues.
よかった。道連れにしてやる。かかってこい。死にこれまでやってきた。
In the midst of it all, Jinwoo hopes that he can become a little stronger. When he wanted to vent all his emotions by screaming, unfortunately this made the statues attack him. When Jinwoo was placed in the middle of the altar, he said how hypocritical his gratitude had been. And Jinwoo had to watch the last seconds before he was executed by one of the statues. Jinwoo, who didn't want to die yet, hoped that he would be given another chance. And in the end, episode 2 ended here. Thank you so much for staying on this channel and watching our videos. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep you up to date with our latest content. See you in the next video.